Hello, this is Angie Yingst, and you're listening to Centered, grounded conversations about the metaphysical. Blessed Autumn Equinox, Earth people. It's Angie Yingst, and I'm here with your Autumn Equinox / Mabon reading. In my earth-based pagan spiritual practice, this is a time of balance, so we honor gratitude and the abundance of the earth. And I think it's really important, and I teach in my mentoring circles all about the wheel of the year, because it's very easy to forget that we are of the earth, even though, of course, this is our planet and all of those things, but we live kind of cloistered in houses that don't experience changes in weather as much. You know, we're always kind of climate controlled. Most of us are in the Western world, and, you know, we have air conditioning in the summer and, you know, heat in the winter, and we're not harvesting our own food. We're not slaughtering our own meat. So we get kind of detached from what happens through the year, what used to happen. And not that that's, you know, I'm not saying that that's ideal by any means, but a lot of times we can tell the spiritual work we have to do by what's going on with seasonal changes, the wheel of the year, the moon cycle, things like that. Because believe me, our animal brethren, our winged friends, our scurrying friends, our slithering friends, they know what time of year it is. And they're doing things to prepare for the next season. And so autumn equinox comes here September 20th to the 22nd, sometime in between there. This year it's the 22nd of September, and it's the second harvest festival in the Wheel of the Year. Now, the Wheel of the Year are the pagan festivals. There's 8 of them that kind of were marking points in pagan societies of like celebration times. Now, Wicca is a religion that came up in like the 1950s. And it seems older because that's what Wiccans wanted you to think, you know, or not wanted you to think, but, you know, they pulled from old folk festivals, old agrarian festivals, and they kept it fairly Celtic focused for the names of the 8 festivals on the Wheel of the Year. So, But I have to say that those festivals are often celebrated in very similar ways all around the world. Okay, so you'll find similar kinds of festivals happening in different cultures. Why? Because when you're tied to the earth, there are these points where you start to notice, hey, you know, there's a chill in the air and the wind is changing, and, you know, that kind of means we have to bring in all the rest of the crops. You know, we have to harvest things, or they'll start rotting on the vine, or, you know, we got to clear the fields. So there were ideas here, you know, that kind of transcend Wicca, transcend Celtic focused spirituality. But all that being said, I'm going to tell you more about some of the Celtic ideas here, and then talk about the Greek idea of autumn equinox. So it is called Mabon by Wiccans, and, you know, they were looking for names. So autumn equinox and vernal equinox were not necessarily big festivals if they were celebrated at all. The bigger festivals are going to be Samhain and Beltane. They're both the bigger festivals, the greater Shabbats or Sabbats, you know. So autumn equinox was named after this kind of Celtic focused idea. So Mabon was named after a Celtic god. And as a child, this god Mabon was stolen from his mother and imprisoned deep in the womb of the earth. And then at Yule, he will be reborn with the light again, when the sun and the earth, you know, they meet, and then they get reborn at winter solstice, or Yule, when there's a rebirth of light. So interesting that we also celebrate Christ's birthday at that time. But okay, autumn equinox is the time where we balance light and darkness. And it's kind of like vernal equinox in that way, except unlike vernal equinox, Mabon examines the move into darkness rather than into light. So when we're looking at other cultures, we can look at the Greeks because they were very good at this. The rites of Demeter and the Eleusinian mysteries were honored for 2,000 years during this move from light to dark. And central to these rites were the story of Demeter and her daughter Persephone, sometimes called Kore. And they were so secretive, they were never written down. But there is the entire story, the Homeric hymn to Demeter, which is translated by Gregory Nagy. And he's my favorite translator of Greek myth. He's just very, very good at that. But I wanted to read a little bit. I'll just read the beginning of it. The Homeric hymn to Demeter. I begin to sing of Demeter, the holy goddess with the beautiful hair, and her daughter Persephone too, the one with the delicate ankles, whom Hades seized. She was given away by Zeus, the loud thunderer, the one that sees far and wide. Demeter did not take place in this, she of the golden double axe, she who glories in the harvest. Persephone was having a good time, along with the daughters of Oeanos, who wore their waistbands slung low. She was picking flowers, roses, crocus, and beautiful violets, up and down the soft meadow. Iris blossoms, too, she picked, and hyacinth, and the narcissus, which was grown as a lure for the flower-faced girl by Gaia. All according to the plans of Zeus. Gaia was doing a favor for the one who receives many guests. She's referring to Hades there. The narcissus was a wonderful thing in its splendor. To look at it gives a sense of holy awe to the immortal gods as well as the mortal humans. And it keeps going, and it says, Persephone was filled with a sense of wonder and reached out with both hands to take hold of the pretty plaything, and the earth, full of roads leading every which way, opened up underneath her. It happened on the plain of Nysa, and there it was, the Lord who receives many guests made his lunge. He was riding a chariot drawn by his immortal horses, the son of Kronos, the one known by many names. He seized her against her will and put her in the golden chariot, and she drove away as she wept. She cried with a piercing voice, calling upon her father Zeus, the son of Kronos, the highest and the best. But not one of the immortal ones, or of the human mortals, heard her voice, not even the olive trees which bear their splendid harvest, except for the daughter of Perseus, the one who keeps in mind the vigor of nature. She heard it from her cave. She is Hecate with the splendid headband. And the Lord Helios, the sun, heard it too, the magnificent son of Hyperion. And it goes and goes and goes. I love it so very much that I usually read it to my children, much against with their dismay. I tell this story all the time because it's one of my favorites. And Persephone finds herself stolen by Hades, as I said, in the underworld. And Demeter is frantic with fear and grief. And she roamed the earth, searching for her, imploring the gods and goddesses to help. And finally, Helios, the god of the sun, told her what had happened and that her father Zeus had allowed it to happen. And Demeter grew very angry, as you would. Who wouldn't? She grew angry and refused to return to Olympus. And she transformed herself into a crone, and she wandered the earth for a full year, allowing all the crops to wither and die. And she invited the goddess Limos, starvation, to rule in her stead. And Zeus and the other gods were so upset because they weren't having any offerings or sacrifices from humans. No crops, no offerings. And so he sent Hermes, the messenger god, to the underworld to retrieve Persephone. And Hades, who's very clever and cunning, forced Persephone, who had refused food for all those months, to eat 6 pomegranate seeds, ensuring that she would have to return. So Autumn Equinox is said to be the time when Persephone descends into the underworld, and Demeter begins her grief season, transforming from mother to crone. I can relate to that as I am transforming from mother to crone. And then at spring equinox, Persephone returns to the earth where her mother allows the crops to grow again. Now, Mabon kind of begins our own descent into the underworld and the darkness as these days grow shorter and the nights longer. We stop at autumn equinox to honor this second harvest. We honor, what we've been through, what the earth has given us, especially Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, how much we have. And so this is a time of gratitude. And many of us, we don't call it this necessarily, but it's a pagan Thanksgiving. So the main offering at this celebration is a feast, a gathering. Traditional foods of harvest of this time of year is really popular. So Mabon honors the harvest of fruit and root vegetables, and the sharing of food and harvest is integrally tied to members of the community and the family together. So, this time is asking us to reorient ourselves into gratitude. Gratitude has to be the root of your spiritual practice. It keeps us present. It keeps us humble. So we think about and are grateful for the moment, for the present. And abundance comes in a lot of forms. And so, if you're feeling like, financially, I'm not very abundant right now, Angie, what the hell are you talking about? It's a time, to think about the abundance of love that you might have in your life, or friendship, or caring. Maybe it's time or energy or finances or warmth, the abundance of just intellect that you might have, or camaraderie, or things to do. There's not a limit to the way or how you should view gratitude and abundance. It just, this time of the year we stop and remind ourselves that you're harvesting things that you planted months and months ago. And so you can kind of think back to what was planted at Beltane, which was May 1st, or summer solstice. What are you harvesting now? And what can you express deep gratitude for because of what you're reaping? So we can think about some of the medicine that is very useful. Right now is a great time to forage, even though it might not seem it. But if you're someone who collects or eats mushrooms, this is a great time to get chicken of the woods. My friend Agata gave me a ton of them, which I'm going to cook tonight. I'm excited for it. You can also harvest things like rose hips and acorns and coniferous leaves, and make bundles if you want to, and if you use smoke cleansing as part of your healing. You may also notice that there's some spring plants starting to return, like some dandelion or wild violet or chickweed. Those are great to also collect right now. It's also a really great time to kind of think about like your squashes and your root vegetables and all of those things. For crystals, we have some great crystals for autumn equinox. And, you can use dravite, yellow jasper, mookite. Peridot is another really good one. Peridot is not easy to find big, but you can find it in jewelry a lot more frequently. Lapis lazuli is also a really nice one. Now, there is some kind of talking about lapis being like the new blood diamond kind of because of Afghanistan stuff. But if you have existing lapis, that's great. You can use black tourmaline and honor the dark. So, any equinox, we're going to look at balance, how to balance things in our lives. So, there's some great kind of journal prompts that you can do. Besides people in your life, what are you grateful for? One thing that we do in our house, which I don't know if it's helpful, but I had this bathroom that had like stencil on that I didn't care for too much. And so what I did was I bought chalkboard paint, which was like $5 at Michael's. And I just made a strip of chalkboard paint over the stencils. And I just wrote, "What are you grateful for?" on it. And so people who come to my house, I leave chalk chalk markers there, and they write what they're grateful for. And my kids write all the time, what they're grateful for. Things I love to see on a daily, They think about it, like they put a friend or, school, or my daughter who's 15 put, I'm grateful for the helpers, the weather, summer. Another thing to write is like, what qualities in yourself are you grateful for? And looking at, how to accept all the parts of you. Shadow does rise up in these shadowy times. And so we have to look at, okay, what's that about? Can I love the child that was hurt who defended themselves with this? So, a great kind of meditation or ritual is just to gather friends. Maybe, some people talk about like Friendsgivings, right? Where they have a Thanksgiving with friends. This is a great time for that, especially if you come from a family that celebrates American Thanksgiving and they want you to be there and it feels like an obligation. This is a great time to gather the friends because it usually doesn't step on your parents' toes if you're someone who keeps that family connection. We can cultivate a gratitude practice in our gatherings and just basically, go around and talk about what we're doing. I like to call this like a gratitude reset. It's like a day of noticing everything that the world gives you and reframing those things that we take for granted, which is done, sometimes like on a day that like today where we have to go to work. So we can wake with the thought of just like, thank you for this day. Thank you. As a recovering alcoholic, I would say, thank you for keeping me sober. That's the first thing I say in the morning. And then, you can say every prayer as a thank you, or you can say, I am grateful for this day. You can say, I'm, thankful that I can be present in this moment right now. I'm grateful for clean air, or I'm grateful for my lungs, which keep me alive and help me breathe. I am grateful for my legs. Hard work can be reframed as I'm thankful for the ability to work hard and move my body. Even an ache or a pain can be kind of framed as thank you for reminding me of my body, which is strong and capable, and it sometimes needs rest. When you when you're interacting with someone who's being a hard pill to swallow, you can, instead of complaining, say like, how can I be of service to this person? How can I be grateful for them? Maybe you'll say, thank you for giving me a gratitude practice, which forces me to see the positive in things. Or I'm grateful for the reminder of what negativity sounds and feels like, and I'm grateful for my ability to see the positive today. And if you can't reframe it, you can use this thing that my friend Helen McKenna always says to me, which is, that person is perfect just as they are. No one can be say we use John. John is perfect just as he is. No one can do John like John can. John is a perfect John. I can't change John to be more perfect. John is perfect just as he is. He is a child of the earth. And, spending time in that kind of childlike awe and gratitude, it really does feel different in your body. And that can be really important. Now, we're talking about balance when we talk about any equinox, because we're balancing light and dark, and you can do that little egg trick for your kids. But I'm going to use the Autumn Equinox layout that's in my book, the complete tarot layouts. If you like to do tarot pulls, this is a great book to kind of just do your own stuff. And this pull in particular is really based on what needs healing and how to bring your body into balance. I'm going to put my book in a little book holder before I start this. Okay, here we go. All right, so let's see where my energy is at right now. So this is kind of like the pulse of us. And when I do these readings and they're collective and I'm saying I mean yours. The idea of these is that they're going to be kind of general enough that they apply, and kind of look at like what the universal energy is and how to help deal with that. So you might find that you're in a different place personally, but you can kind of connect it to like what the world feels like right now. And what I'm getting like right where we are is the Nine of Swords. The Nine of Swords is an anxiety card. It shows a guy in bed with 9 swords over his head, and he's kind of like desperate. We call this the dark night of the soul, and it's coming up reversed. So I feel like some of that really difficult energy that we've been dealing with, particularly in August and moving into September a little bit, that's waning. We're kind of coming out of it. And so that can be a really important check-in. Like, all right, I have just been through this thing. And, I've been talking about this a lot because I saw this amazing TikTok where this person who does EMDR for other people says that, there are big T traumas that she does EMDR for. And those, of course, are the traumas that we think about. But there's 100 little T traumas that people go through. And that's the majority of the EMDR work that she does. The look of shame or judgment that someone might give a child ends up getting embedded in them. And that becomes a little T trauma. And so when we think about this dark night of the soul, you don't have to always think about trauma as like this big T event. I crashed my car into a tree, or I was sexually assaulted. Those are big T traumas, okay? But there can be little T traumas, I had a friendship loss. I lost my job. I'm going through a divorce and having custody battle. Someone took away my kids, Those things are difficult. They're little T traumas. Sometimes they're big T traumas, especially the taking away the kids. That's a big T trauma, little T. But, even when we're going through something like divorce and suddenly you have your kids every other week, or you have your kids, half the time, that's a trauma. That's a trauma. It's not a little T trauma. That's a big T trauma. Little T traumas are ones that affect us that people don't necessarily think of as trauma. Okay? I believe that this Nine of Swords is reminding us whatever you've been through, it's been difficult. Anxiety is real. Burnout is real. Trauma is real. So, we're kind of honoring the fact that we're moving out of this and that we're in a healing time. And when we heal, we walk slowly. We eat good food. We put ourselves to bed. We take naps. We do gentle things. We don't overdo it. And so you're being asked right now to think of this time as a recovery time, of emotional recovery time. So where are the balances and imbalances coming from right now? We're going to the second card, which is the Emperor reversed. Meaning the Emperor is about stability. Okay, we've got a 4 in the major arcana. The Emperor is about rules and authority and stability, which is rockin'. Okay, it's not stable. It's a little unstable. So we're looking at like our relationship with authority, with the things that we could count on, like the bedrocks of our life and our practice. Whatever that is, whatever works, what was happening at work. Like, I'm teaching tarot right now, and just hearing the stuff people are going through, everyone has different approaches. They all work different jobs, but they're all looking for a kind of stability and noticing that this thing that they kind of have been doing for a while they're not 100% sure it's working, right? We look at those things and we just go, that's part of life. But when we take like a snapshot, like we do in a tarot reading like this, when we see this is where my balance and imbalances are coming from. And so how do we get prepared for whatever changes are coming? How do we clear our body? How do we do that work? That's our third position, which is the Hermit comes in. And the Hermit is a major arcana card. It's the 9, and it is the search for what our spiritual center is. It is the guy going off to meditate in the mountain or in the cave, trying to find some sort of understanding. So if you're feeling like your spiritual practice has just been like going to work and coming back and zoning out, and that's fine. We all do that. We all have times like that. But this is a great time, the autumn equinox, to reset your gratitude practice, to reset your spiritual practice. And you may want to search for that thing that you connect with. The amazing thing about spiritual work is that you can always come back to center. Like you can always go back and do the things that work for you or find new ways of doing things. You don't always have to do the same thing over and over again. Meditation is a wonderful spiritual practice, but does it work for everyone every time? No. Maybe yoga is that meditation time, or going for walks in the woods is a meditation time. They all can be spiritual practices if you let them be. So that can be very important. And our next position is, where have I given too much? And we're getting temperance reversed. So temperance is a card. It's also a major arcana. So you can see there's a lot of majors here. It comes in as emotional balance. Archangel Michael comes in with this card. So we also are talking about protection. So we're giving too much emotional energy to other people. Okay. We're not paying attention to our own balance. And maybe it's a time that we've overindulged. And when I say overindulged, whatever that thing of choice is, could be next Netflix documentaries, it could be sex, it could be food, it could be alcohol, it could be weed, it could be whatever, gambling. Whatever it is, we have to balance it, okay? So temperance is asking us to call in our guides and to work with this idea of what am I overindulging and how, okay? We're looking to not give so much to other people, okay? Particularly emotional energy. And where we have taken too much is the next one. And we get the Four of Wands. Now, the Four of Wands is a positive card. It's a card of graduation. So we can also think about that as, where have I given too much? Or where have I taken too much? Just this idea that like I've taken too many responsibilities right now. And in that way, maybe failing some people. We're not kind of graduating at that. So just thinking about how can I really honor myself and other people by like making commitments that I can keep, and saying no when we can't. So, how to really balance these things comes in the 6, and the 4 of Cups comes in. Now, the 4 of Cups is a card of meditation. It's a card of gratitude. Like that's the card of a gratitude practice there, because he's sitting there with his arms crossed and there's a cup appearing from God and he's not noticing it because he is staring at himself, basically. And we think of this card, this 4 of Cups is how to balance these things. Well, first we have to kind of get into a meditation practice and look up and look at what we have around us. So that's a great gratitude practice card. But the point is that some of this work is internal, it's introspective. It isn't about doing that work in community necessarily. It's about doing it alone, developing your own spiritual practice. And what are we grateful for? Well, the 6 of Swords comes up, which is an odd card for this position. What am I grateful for? But the 6 of Swords shows a woman and a child in a boat driving, going away. You see the back of them. And it's actually come in reverse. And in the reversal, it often means like one has left a toxic situation. And so what we're thinking about, what are we grateful for? We're grateful for the times we have left situations that weren't working for us anymore. Which again, I know sounds funny, but I think it's important to think about. I left those situations to feel better, to heal, because I put myself first. So we're just honoring the fact that you cared for yourself and you didn't stay in abusive places, situations, friendships, all those things. So, okay, let's talk about the outcome here, because the outcome's great. It's the 10 of Pentacles, which is a very abundant card. It's a card of having everything you want. So think about what abundance means too, because you can definitely use abundance cards at any of the harvest festivals, which is Lammas, Autumn Equinox, and Samhain. So citrine's a good one for that, and kind of calling in, energy that we need or want. So money's a good one to call in, abundance of friendship, abundance of love, abundance of community. Those things are all great during Autumn Equinox. So thank you for letting me come into your ear holes and do this Autumn Equinox reading and spread the medicine of this blessed day. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening to Centered with me, Angie Yingst. If you'd like to send me a question or comment about this show or any shows, you can send them to Angie@themoonandstone.com.